welcome back to the PCC podcast. And today we have another very, very special guest, another member of the team and staff here at PCC, who I am very, very excited to ask a lot of questions to, because we were just saying off air how, we didn't really prepare too much, but I'm excited to kind of go back in time, reflect, and just look at the journey up to now. So today we have Michaela Spaulding now, who is our mindset breakthrough specialist here at PCC. So with her, we are aiming to bridge the gap between mental and physical health. So welcome, super excited to have you. If you want to start by just introducing who you are and who you are outside of PCC and kind of how that ties in.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for having me. Super excited. So outside of PCC, I'm a licensed psychotherapist where I work at a group practice. So I see psychotherapy clients between the ages of, my youngest client right now is 6 and the oldest is 25. So a pretty big, diverse group. And within PCC, as the mindset breakthrough specialist, I work with some clients one-on-one, specifically on the mental health side of things with the lens of fitness. And then also with our mindset breakthrough office hours, which really I think of them and I treat them as like group therapy. So she had one today and it was super great. So yeah, that's kind of how that intertwines, but
I love
definitely
it.
Foundation of mental health. Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, I want to go back in time because I've done this with all of our interviews so far, because everybody who's here has a story of why they're here. So let's go all the way back to, I want you to think of, where did your fitness journey even start in the first place? Not even when we started working together, but all the way back, and kind of walk me through the progression of how your fitness journey went, and then how this passion of yours has come to be to where we are today.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So if I think back to, just growing up, I was always into sports. That was just part of our norm in our family. Everyone played sports. Taekwondo was my biggest one. I was
Really?
Yep. So I have a black belt in Taekwondo, which it's always a fun fact that I share when someone asks you what a fun fact is. But
yeah, I don't think I knew that.
That was a huge part of my life. I competed in it and loved competitive sparring. And then so that was the big thing, did ballet, did swim and all that, but Taekwondo just really had my heart. And then in 8th grade, 9th grade, I felt like I just kind of grew out of it. I got my black belt at age 11, 12.
Oh, wow.
And then in high school, I ran track and field. And then in college, did a little bit of dance, and I did co-ed clubs here and there, but it was just, fitness was just always been a part of my life under the umbrella of sports. And then I went to graduate school. That's when I was like, okay, there's none of this anymore. You don't have any, I guess there are those adult sport clubs and everything, but that never was an interest of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I came across you. So that was 2017. I was working on my first year in graduate school.
Wow.
I vividly still remember, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but you came across just my feed on Instagram. And then I was like, okay, yeah, I think this was when fitness coaching was still just new and starting.
Yeah.
So I was so skeptical. I feel like I've had all these fitness people show up on my feed and I'm like, yeah, they just want my money. This is a scam. And then I saw you and you had posted something about George Mason, or I think you were wearing a Mason sweatshirt or something. So immediate rapport, I was like, okay, she's legit. She's local. And I just dove into your page, and that's when I decided to just jump on it. And here we are today.
Yeah. Wow. 2017. That is absolutely crazy, because that's over 6 years ago now. Crazy. But there's a little bit more in between that. So we started a fitness journey together. Walk me through what your relationship with health and fitness was like when we had started, and when all that had kicked off, and then how did it evolve over the, 4 years that we worked together? And then where are you now with your health and fitness journey?
Yeah. So when I started with you, like I said, I was in graduate school at that time, went straight from undergrad to grad school. And I was just really looking for guidance on what the heck do I do now? with my fitness journey, without sports, without any of that. And I was in a really unhealthy place, like mentally.
Mm.
Um, like, let me rewind a little bit. Like my freshman year of college, I remember waking up in a hospital because I was restricting and dieting.
Oh, wow.
Remember the doctor was like, nothing's wrong with her. She's fine. She just kind of like, but I literally woke up with like bruises on my face because I fell on tiled floor in my freshman year dorm, and my freshman year roommate found me at that time. And I knew it was because I wasn't eating, and I was constantly just on the treadmills at the fitness center at my university. But I was like, I don't know what happened. Deep down, I was like, okay, this is not good. But I just had a very unhealthy mindset around it. Like it was very much be on the cardio treadmill for as long as I can. The sweatier I got, the better the workout was. And then eat as little as possible. And so that was just the mindset behind it. And then, yeah, I feel like that was it for a really long time. Now that I'm like going back, I
Yeah.
feel like, yeah. And
All through
then
college.
all through college. I mean, I would even say throughout graduate school until I started getting the foundation from you and the knowledge. Because that was really scary. Like eating more, going
Yeah.
into the weight section of the gym. I was like, no, that's super opposite of everything I've ever known my whole life. But yeah, it was just a really bad spot, very unhealthy. And that's also what sparked my interest in mental health is like, okay, I know the things, I read about the things, I'm learning it, and I want to work with clients in the future. But if I don't take a look at the relationship within myself, then how am I expected to work and help other people? So that was a big trigger moment for, okay, you gotta get your act together type
With
of thing.
the mental health, I'm curious. So like when you went into college, obviously you had this unhealthy relationship with yourself and with health and fitness. And you said that sparked your interest in going into becoming a psychotherapist. So like when did that decision come to be for you to choose that career path? Like was it truly like, yeah, just walk me through that.
Yeah. So funny enough, it was actually ninth grade intro to psychology class in high school. But I
Nice.
there and I was just like, this is what I want to do. Like never heard of psychology, psychotherapy. I'm just sitting there fascinated, and I can nerd out on this all day long, but just fascinated with how the brain worked and how powerful the mind was, and all just the little things that influence it from childhood to adulthood. And I was just mind blown. So I kid you not, ninth grade, I was like, I'm going to be a psychotherapist. And I guess manifested that for myself.
Yeah.
But I ever since I was that age that I wanted to do therapy. And then as I continued to learn about it, I was like, yep, constant check-ins. And I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And as I learned more about it, that's when I started to put my personal life on
Yeah.
it to be like, okay, not to like psychotherapize myself, but like that's what you end up doing. And
Yeah.
that made me, just put the connections together. And I was like, okay, I can learn also for my benefit. And then by doing that, it's a domino effect of helping others. And that just
Yeah.
has come full circle.
Very cool. Yeah. I can't remember if it was freshman year or sophomore year of high school that I took psychology at like 101 as an elective. And I still have that textbook. I
Same.
literally like I was hooked. And so that was like that for me. I don't think I really associated it with anything at the time, but I knew that I just like loved it. And I think it's where it kind of directed my focus later. So very, very similar to you. I was addicted. And I think that's really a big part of what influenced me to choose neuroscience.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's interesting. The storyline is a little bit different for you. Maybe not for your role here, but a lot of times it's like when we choose a career path, we choose it because of a trial that maybe we've overcome or some wounds that we've healed, and we want to pay that forward. So I think that may be the case for how we've made your position here. But it's interesting to know that you kind of had this light bulb just from studying something and like learning it right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. Super interested. I mean, even just a fun fact for those that don't know, like my dog's name is Sigmund, if that's not indicative of how much I love psychology. It's so fascinating. I love it. And I feel like you just never stop learning about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, then let's talk about okay, your fitness journey evolved from, we worked together, we built a foundation, and then we decided to kind of level it up a little bit. So talk about that.
Yeah. So 2017 to 2020, you and I kind of like set the foundation down. I really found my footing in the gym, my confidence, like really reshaped how I thought about fitness and just my relationship with myself. And then I feel like I got into a routine. And I'm also the kind of person who's always like, okay, what's the next goal to achieve? And I remember coming to you, and this was so like not even in my cards at all. I was just like, hey, Marissa, what do you think about me competing in bodybuilding? And you're like, absolutely, let's do this. And I'm like, hold on, I'm just asking, like, if it's a thing. And I think that confidence you even put in me, that you were like, yeah, we can do this. Absolutely. You have the foundation. We've been doing this. We have the rapport, and you really pushed me to do it. And that, I mean, I feel like that's a whole segment in and of itself of how much bodybuilding changed and saved my life. But yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. Would you mind elaborating on that? How did it change and save your life?
Yeah. Okay. So again, just that personal piece where I feel like I'm constantly needing to achieve something else. Like I'm working on this with my therapist of like, it's okay to just pause
Yeah.
and pat yourself on the back, and you did a really good thing, and then achieve the next thing. But like pause a second.
Yeah.
It's never been me. I'm always like, okay, but I check that off, onto the next, onto the next. So when you and I decided to go into this, and we ended up doing 2 shows together, it really was at a point in my life where I was working at a really toxic workplace. I worked at a residential facility working with youth ages 12 to 17 who were suicidal and
Mm.
engaged in self-harming behaviors on the daily. Like, they were not safe to be in their home. So they stayed in the facility, lived there for like 45 to 60 days.
Wow.
So constantly just surrounded by trauma and negativity, just depression, just, it was just sad. I mean, kids were lovely. Like, that's what made me realize how much resiliency people can have despite their past. But that was rough. And also with the biggest piece was on call.
Yeah, I remember that.
On call weeks. So out of the 4 weeks of each month, each therapist would have a week 24/7 of on call. So anytime this phone can go off, and you'd either have a kid in crisis, you have to go transport to the ER, you have to de-escalate a situation. But that Samsung ringtone still gets to me to this day. And
Mm.
with my husband, like Matt still is like, I cannot hear a Samsung ringtone, because it just brings you back to that. So there was just so much chaos at that time in my life. And I just never knew what my days were going to look like. But with bodybuilding, it was like, I knew what workouts I was going to do. I knew exactly how much cardio I was going to do, what my meals were. So that really created a grounding sense of like safety for me. So it
Mm.
was like, okay, I can take on whatever chaos work had, because I knew I still had to get my whatever cardio or whatever meals done for today.
Yeah.
And that brought me through that really difficult period of my time.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I just remember planning around these on calls, being like, okay, so this is the week, and like we troubleshoot that, and then comes around next month. It's like having your period every month, except like you have both.
Yes. Yeah. I remember those where it's like, I literally would not sleep. Like, I'd be like, Marissa, I had 2 hours of sleep. How do we do this? And that's when also like the concept of giving yourself grace and self-compassion was super new to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, on call was tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, just you've been through a lot with your health and your fitness journey, and it's really cool to, I mean, just go through the little timestamps of like how this progressed. But then I started growing and scaling PCC. We had stopped working together. You went on to continue to pursue bodybuilding, and I was kind of like, continuing beyond here might be out of my scope. Like, we should maybe like redirect, because I'm not really a bodybuilding coach at this point. But we parted ways and eventually found our way back to a conversation about how can you be a part of PCC in the capacity that you are a professional at. So I kind of want to pick your brain on like, where was this sparked? Like, what was the initial spark? And then how did it grow to the point where you were like, let's talk about it?
Yeah. Oh, that's like going down memory lane. I still have a very vivid memory of, it was my first show ever. We were sitting in the hotel room. It was before I set on stage. Like we were just sitting there, you were doing your work on your laptop and you're like, let's talk about this after your shows. But I just wanted to plant a seed of like, what do you think about working with PCC? Like, or at that time it was Marissa Fitness.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm really scaling my business, would love to have you on the team, all of that. And in that moment, of course, I was just like, I need to compartmentalize. It's awesome. But I was like, I mean, it opened up like a possibility that I never knew was even possible, truly. So I compartmentalized that, went through the 2 shows, and then I just could not stop thinking about it. Like, I was like, is there a future in like this type of space where I can help people, not just from the stereotypical psychotherapy, come sit on my couch type of thing, but really incorporate a fitness passion side? I remember having lots of conversations with my husband, Matt, and he was just like, why not? Just see what it's about. But I'm like, but no, right? Like I need to work on my licensure. I got to go through these steps. But I was ruminating on it a lot, in a good way, in a really healthy way. And of course, there's that level of fear that I was like, well, I don't know this. Like the path to licensure is this way, and this is what it takes to be a psychotherapist. And that's just what you do once you're in, my end goal was private practice, which I started private practice at 28. And then that started the whole conversation of like, okay, now what? Like we got what we've been wanting to do. And sometimes I'll ask myself, did I do this too fast? But then I'm like, no, I was always in the right place at the right time, that this allowed space for PCC. And in this role, that's where, you allowed me, I think, to just, we called it like our little guinea pig experiment, where it's like, you were like, Michaela, this is your baby. Like, what do you think of it? You helped me with some guidance of like, here's what it could be, but you really kind of like let my creativity come into it. And I think that helped a lot. But yeah, I've been thinking about it for a while, and it wasn't until I had that like, okay, what's next? Conversation with myself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. Cause actually I forgot that I think at the time, cause you did your shows in the summer of 2021, right? That was like right when I had hired my first business mentors, and I had just started thinking bigger of like, what could we do here? And I think that my impression with that question was actually like, I was thinking of you as a coach. I think I had thought of you as like, you're going to be a fitness coach and da 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 da. And I think we had kind of ping ponged that back and forth a little bit. But I love what it's evolved into. It's so much better than what it could have been if we tried to like shove you into that box. Like this is, I think, so perfect because you're able to like truly express your passion with it. So, hey, I forgot about that. And I forgot about exactly where I was at that time too. So I'm glad we went down that road.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well then, let's talk about, I want to know, because when it comes to doing psychotherapy, you have the legal side of insurance and, going through those hoops and the confidentiality. And I know we've talked a lot about how there's actually a lot of differences between what you're doing here and what you do in private practice or with your clients in psychotherapy, that, some people might not be able to really tell the difference, like on the receiving end. But what has that, I guess, journey of navigating, like, am I complying with ethics? Like putting this all together and creating it, we have to obviously be careful because we're dealing with something as delicate as people's mental health. But yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's like the rule follower, people pleasing part of me that always has to be like by the book. But, I've consulted with a lot of like people in my just career space, like colleagues who have like their own passion projects. And it's really like, once you get your license, you can learn to do whatever. Like, you've earned this spot, you've earned this, just, being able to do what you want with it. And you don't have to be just this black and white type of clinician. And yes, I mean, working for a group practice, right? Like, you work under certain practices and rules and regulations that we have there, but it's also like you're independently licensed. So as long as you're coming from a place of like, your own ethics and you are complying with like the board standards, you're good. And I feel like that's been a huge factor of just a place of fear for me of like, well, I don't want to stray. Am I doing this right? Is this okay? And I feel like this role really allowed me to like challenge that status quo, which has been super cool. And so when it comes to the difference, yeah, I don't do anything different. Like with our PCC clients, like it's a therapy session. Like, I am doing all the skills and the framework that I use in my practice, but I actually think it's even better because there is that sprinkle of that lens of fitness, which yes, I will sprinkle that on into my psychotherapy clients, but then a lot of times it's like, yeah, we already know that, not interested, want to talk more about my diagnosis. Whereas I feel like with our PCC clients, like that's the root of it. Like, they signed up for PCC because of their health and wellness goals. And I get to really hold on to that. And then I'm also able to just share a little bit more of myself, which is very frowned down upon in this world. It's almost like such a one-sided relationship, right? Like, for people maybe that are listening or have had experience with therapy, it's like, I don't know anything about my therapist, but they know my deepest, darkest secrets. It's like, how is that fair? And I've gotten feedback from a lot of people too, where it's like, I wish I'd known more about you, or I wish I could hear more about your journey, but it's very much like, how does this benefit you? But then in our like mindset breakthrough sessions, it's very much like, there is so much value in sharing. And I preach that all the time. I'm like, we want to be vulnerable. We want to share. There's so much power in expressing. And then I'm not. So it really was very challenging for me at first, but no, it's really cool that there is that like parallel, but I actually think it's so much better.
Haha, I love it. No, that's really cool. Because I've had that experience with therapy, like traditional therapy myself. I've been in and out a few times. And that was kind of, I think, my biggest thing where like I went, and here's why, right? Because psychologically, when someone asks you a lot of questions, it pulls you closer to them. Like, it makes you feel like you have a bond. And that's why there's like, in the TV dramas, I fell in love with my therapist, right? So, but that's a thing, like, you feel closer to someone when they ask you questions. And so if that's not reciprocated, it's like one person on one side is building this curiosity around, wow, this person really knows me, appreciates me, doesn't judge me. I like them a lot, but I know nothing. And I don't say it's a deal breaker at all. Like, I was able to get through what I got through, but like, I could see where that is like a, I guess, common complaint or like kind of stress point for that relationship in a certain setting where like you literally can't, like, I'm sorry, I cannot share that. So yeah, that would be tough, but it's cool that you're able to kind of have a break from that and exercise that here and be yourself, share your journey. And I know that that's something that you are working on, is being more vulnerable. But that kind of brings me into my next question. You don't have to answer with this specifically, but as a practitioner and as someone who's providing a lot of value to our clients and our community, what are some skills or traits or things that you are currently working on yourself that are maybe areas of prior weakness that you're trying to turn into strengths?
That's a good question. And my mind immediately knew what I was going to say. And it's just, the relationship with myself. I feel like self-compassion, giving myself credit, giving myself grace, which I preach all the time, like on the daily, right? It's almost like, and I tell a lot of clients this, it's like, it's so easy to know the things, to learn the things, but to actually execute is a whole nother story. And so that's something I feel like I'll never be done working on. And that's a great thing. But yeah, continuing to just enjoy hanging out with myself. Like that's the term that I use in sessions. And, what I mean by that is like, do you genuinely like you as a person? Would you enjoy being by yourself? And it's just like a good time, like you don't need other things to fill your time. But yeah, I feel like that's one strategy or one area of weakness that I'm like, because I feel like that just comes along with like human emotions. Like we have our like, days when I look in the mirror and I'm like, I love who I see and this is me and I built that. And then some days where I'm like, no, we're not looking in the mirror because I'm just picking myself apart. And, you'd look at all the things you still want to accomplish and achieve. And yeah, so just giving myself grace. And I feel like in turn makes me a much better practitioner. But like I said, I feel like that's a never ending journey, but could always improve on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love it. And yeah, I think when you're able to do that, have that kind of inner sense of confidence within yourself, that's something I've been working on too, actually, that I could relate a lot to. Then it really does affect how you show up in every other area of your life when you're able to operate from that place versus a place of like self-deprecation or judgment or fear. So absolutely. I am trying to think of the best way to ask this question because I will not breach confidentiality for the conversations and the breakthroughs that you've had with people. But I guess maybe like, let's go like big picture themes. I would love to know, like, just so our clients who maybe haven't come to our Mindset Breakthrough office hours or explored this area of the coaching service, what are some like themes, examples of themes that people are having breakthroughs in, and like kind of examples of what kinds of things are we working through? How do we tie together mental and physical health? Like more tangible examples of like, yes, but what do you mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah. A big theme is just cultural dynamics and like family dynamics. I've seen that a lot. I'm trying to think of like, not being too specific, but just the conditioning that we have, right? As like children and growing up, and then we're in such like a developmental stage in our life where we're just taking in all this information from everything, not even just our families, but even like media, the culture we grew up in, the generation we grew up in. And I feel like people in our sessions are really making the connection rather than, okay, but I just need to do this, right? Like I just need to do the thing and I just need to suck it up and I just need to be more disciplined, or I just need to just want it more and prioritize it more, when in actuality, that's not the case. Like there's a lot at play that we need to like peel back and acknowledge all the things outside of our control that are kind of like affecting us to this day, but we haven't really made that connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then when we make that connection, I mean, it gives us power, right? Because then when we've kind of tied it together of like, this is why this reaction, this action, this self-sabotage, this behavior pattern that I don't love is happening, then I can better attribute, oh, this is happening because that thing is no longer relevant in my life now. So I can move past it, right?
Yeah. And coming from a place of like healing, right? Like not blaming, which I feel like blaming and shaming is always like a step when you start making that connection. You start to be like, well, that should have been different. Or the school I went to, the media I was watching, how my parents parented, like that should have been different. And we start to point fingers. And it's like, okay, let's have that moment. It would have been nice if those things were different.
Yeah.
But then you come back to the present, like, now what?
Yeah.
We have push past that, and what can we change? So yeah.
Absolutely. So it's very solution oriented too, which is what I love. Because I think depending on the style of therapy that you're doing and the, like, I guess the practitioner individually, like it can be very reflective and like, let's only go back, versus I think what you're doing is you're going back, you're bringing it back to the present, and then you're going forward from there. Is that right?
Yeah, I really operate from like a strengths-based perspective, which is something that social work in general just works under that framework, where it's like, I like to use the comparison of like when you go to a doctor, right? And you're like, here are the symptoms that I have. And then doctor's like, okay, that's not good. Like that's an outlier. Let's bring you back to baseline. Here's what you need to do. But then with therapy, I don't want it to be like, here's all the things that are wrong with me. Here's my symptoms. And it's like, okay, let's quote unquote fix you. There's no fixing that needs to be done. Like there's a lot more just understanding that needs to happen. And then that solution focused like approach comes into play. But hey, let's take a look at things that are going well in your life. Can we talk about that? And I mean, even for me personally, it's like, okay, but why would I talk about the things that are going well? It's going well. Let's not touch it. Let's look at things that are not. But there is so much power in like, let's operate from like strength space or like a place of gratitude. We don't do that often, unfortunately.
No, we do not. And it's super, super underrated. No, that's great. And yeah, even as just as I'm listening to you say that, a reminder for me to be like, oh, I'm thinking to myself how I've been operating lately. And I'm just like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not acknowledging the things that are going well. Why don't we do that? Because things are actually going really well. I just like to focus on the deficits, just like you said. So, yeah. So I guess I really only have one or two more questions for you, but this is a big one. So mindset breakthrough specialist and the mental and physical intertwining that we're doing here at PCC. What is your grander vision?
Oof. Oh my gosh. Okay, I was not prepared for that question. My grander vision. I feel like there's a little bit of excitement to be like, literally anything's possible. And I'm really excited to just kind of figure out what that is with you. And like, just even, I don't know, I feel like there's so much that we can do. And it's really hard to think of one specific example. But I feel like even with the things that we're doing now, it's like continuing to evolve from it, be better from it, or even like not just our clients, but even with our staff. And I think I've told you that before of like, how can this role be of service, not just to the actual clients, but like within our team? Because as we know, if our team is great and we're mentally and physically in a great spot, like we are better servants to other people. And I feel like that's one of the strengths of our team members is like, we are all rooted in such just a heart of gold. Like we all have such a common vision.
Yeah.
And we need to protect that because outside of this, we are all human beings. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah,
I feel like literally the opportunities are endless with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple ideas that I'm excited to discuss with you off air after this, but I'll finish with this then. If you had to give our listeners, which I will say are probably primarily our clients, but there's a number of people that are not, one piece of advice when it comes to finding that like mesh between their mental and their physical health, what would be that one piece of advice for someone to start doing that and tend to all facets of themselves as an individual so that they can improve in their health and wellness journey?
Yeah. I feel like I would go back to that phrase I said earlier of like hanging out with yourself. If that's not something you do already on the regular, figure out what that looks like and get to hanging out with yourself. Like just enjoy who you are. I mean, this is all we've got, right? And I feel like we spend a lot of our lives just trying to nitpick things that we can change about ourselves or be more like this other person, when in reality, that's so out of our control. We just like to think that, oh, by doing these things, then I could potentially be this other person that I like more. But it's like, this is it. You're you. No one else is like you. That is insane. No one could ever try to be you because you're the only person that can be you. And there's so much strength in that. And I feel like once you really get to that point of like, I genuinely enjoy hanging out with myself and loving myself and loving the person that I am, it goes into that like full circle moment of, because I love myself so much, it makes me want to take care of myself. And it's coming from a place of genuine just love rather than punishment. So it's not like, oh, I have to do these things that are quote unquote good for me because I have to, but it's because I love myself so much that I want to. So I feel like once that mindset has shifted, it's a game changer. And that was a journey for me. I'll say that. That's still a continuous journey, but that shift from punishment to just genuine love, I feel
Yeah.
like.
Oh yeah. I think I'm still even on that journey myself. Like even just hearing you say that, I'm reflecting and I'm like, okay, we could use some work in some of these areas. So that's great advice. I love it. And I think it ties back to a lot of what you said earlier too. So awesome. Well, is there anything that we haven't covered that you maybe wanted to say here today or spread a message about?
I don't think so, but I guess actually one thing, since you said most of our listeners are PCC clients, I just wanted to extend just a gratitude and a thank you for those that have shown up to our office hours and have opened up to me and just really showcase their vulnerability. And that takes a lot of power, a lot of strength. And I just wanted to say thank you to that.
I love it. Yeah, I bet that they appreciate your time and your energy and effort as well. So sneak preview, I mean, what are the things that clients can take advantage of and what are the things that are on their way?
Yes. So currently for December, we have 2 more office hours for this month. We typically offer these twice a month, but ever since the holiday season, we have been doing like a bonus office hour. So we've got one next Wednesday in the evening. So hopefully that allows more people to join. And then again, I think a couple days before Christmas. And then also just some modules that are coming our PCC clients' ways, which is awesome. Just more information, psychoeducation, as we continue to see just, again, that overlap between mental and physical health. So more just psychoeducation coming your way.
Yeah, super pumped for that. It's going to be great. And where can the people find you?
So online on social media, you can find me at fit.meeks, or you can email me on, oh my gosh, I can't even remember my PCC email. I think it's Michaela.
I think it's michaela.diasis.pcc. Yeah.
Yes, that.
We'll put it in the show notes.
There. But yeah, it's at fit.meeks on Instagram.
Awesome. All right. Well, this was awesome. I'm really glad that we did this and took the time for it. And I think this is just such a valuable interview. So, yeah, thanks so much for listening. And we appreciate your attention as we know that that is the most valuable resource that you have to give. And stay tuned for our next episode coming out next Monday, every Monday.